Hey there guys, how you going? So today I wanted to talk about the brand new introduction of the all new game mechanic into this game. It's a brand new medal and mechanic all in one. What they are is they're known as trait medals, and this grayscale Riku medal that we see there is known as trait medal number 1. It's a different type of mechanic. You can think of it as basically, even though it looks like a regular medal, it in fact acts very differently. So you can't actually use that in your Keyblade slot, we'll talk about that. So it's not a true medal in that sense. What it is, it's like, you can think of it as an altered version of a Mickey and Brooms medal if you like. So it will add one trait onto the medal that it looks exactly like. So in this first case here, our introduction into trait medals is, well, through Illustrated Riku EX. The Japanese version has already had trait medal versions of the Terra Ventus and Aqua medal. Perhaps we will see those if the Terra Ventus and Aqua medals return in an EX banner, who knows. But for the meantime, all we know right now is that our trait medal number 1 is this one right here. So what happens when you use trait medal number 1 onto an Illustrated Riku EX? Well, you get one special attack dot added to your medal, which means that you don't have to use a Mickey and Broom, which is nice. You also get one trait added onto the medal. This is really cool, although I'm not super... It definitely has room to grow, I should say, but it definitely is a step in the right direction. You know, I say all the time when I'm talking about EX medals, I go, the EX medal that has come out, whether it's, you know, who knows, Dual Wield Roxas EX, Terra Ventus and Aqua, whatever it may be, I typically complain, well not complain, but I typically am hesitant to purchase it because in terms of the overall damage I'm able to deal with that new EX medal, it might be lessened by the fact that I already have a pretty decent setup with some pretty decent traits for some of my medals. And even though the EX medal on paper may provide some benefits such as, you know, brand new buffs that could potentially allow me to exceed the damage gained by my current setup, I'm not willing to risk the jewels on figuring that out, especially because new EX medals are introduced all the time, that could be better than the ones we currently have. So what I'm trying to say by that is, okay, let's say we have Riku EX right here. His ability is that he gives -2 upright defense, -2 upright defense to all enemies on the field. His native multiply isn't super high, especially compared to some non-EX medals that we have running around these days, like the 358 over 2 days Riku, or the Final Form Sora, which they have definitely tried to give us a fair few of those medals lately. They definitely want people to have copies of those. The native multiply isn't as high as those medals, but the effect could possibly be. Again, though, what I'm saying is, if we have a medal like that, if we have the more common medals with really, really good traits, they will most likely be able to out-damage this medal right here. So, what happens? They introduce a new system called trait medals, which could go to alleviate that. What are the main benefits of trait medals, do we think? Well, actually no, alright, we're going to talk about cost first. Okay, so in terms of cost, obviously the trait medal on its own is completely and utterly useless without having the original copy of that medal, right? So you wouldn't even dream of going for a trait medal without having the original one there. So looking like absolute minimum cost, well, you could get lucky I suppose, but if we're just going to assume that you have to mercy pull the Riku EX medal to get a copy of it, minimum cost is going to be 30,600 jewels if you're going to do all 15 pulls at the initial falling prices, so 3,000, 2,500, 2,200, 2,000 and 1,900. Then 10 lots, so 10 remaining pulls at 1,900 jewels apiece. I believe comes out at 30,600 jewels. Every additional copy of Riku EX, again, if you had to mercy pull each one from there, would be 28,500. So if you just are aiming for traits on a Riku EX medal, right now your options have doubled. You now have a secondary option. You can go, okay, I can either continue pulling for Riku EX medals at 28,500 apiece, or I can go for this brand new option that I have right here, which is the trait medal at 15,000. So 3,000 jewels times 5 pulls. Again, assuming mercy pull, because you could technically get this early. It would be extremely unlikely for you to get this early, but you technically could. Okay, so that is a possibility. So what are some of the pros and cons of these brand new trait medals and this brand new mechanic that's been introduced? Well, the obvious significant pro, at least for the very first banner that has been introduced, is that it's a lower cost alternative to do a 5 pull mercy on this banner than it will be to chase 15 pulls on the previous banner. It's definitely a pro, and if you were just aiming for a traded copy of your current EX medal, that's definitely the way to go. But let's look at it in the grand scheme of things. Compared to the older method, and if you guys have any more pros, please feel free to comment below. If you look at it compared to the older method of trying to repurchase the 15 pulls again, potentially better, off that initial banner, what would you get? I think I think the biggest downside of the trait metals is that they only have use as a fusion material into the original metal. You can't run 2 copies of the same metal on your Keyblade because you don't have 2 copies of the same metal. You have the original and you have this fusion material, but in the same way that you can't put a Chip or a Dale or a Mickey Brooms on your actual Keyblade, despite the fact that this looks like a metal, it is not. It is still effectively a glorified Vantage Mickey B for all intents and purposes, so you can't actually equip that into your Keyblade. You have to. It is useless if it is not equipped into, well, if it's not fused into that initial metal, because it cannot be equipped. You cannot gain any high score percentage bonus from it. So if a new high score challenge rolls around, and you know, let's say this current EX or any EX medals in the future, or any medal for that matter in the future, is a high score bonus medal. If you have a trait only version of it, there's no benefit to having that high score challenge wise. Versus if you do have 2 copies of the high score challenge medal, like let's say you did decide to go and do 2 mercy pulls on a falling prize deal, at least that way you could equip them both in your Keyblade and be that much gain that much more benefit in a high score challenge. What else have we got down here? Okay, so this is pretty important because you cannot draw the boosted version of the particular medal from the trait only deal, which as you can see is the one just above my head there. You can pull the boosted version from that initial EX falling price deal above the top there, because when they've gone and programmed, I say program, not like I know anything about programming, but when they've gone ahead and decided the drop rates, written out the drop table, whatever you want to say it, for the trait metal deal, they've literally just taken out the boosted section for the Riku EX and popped in this trait metal instead. So it is quite literally impossible to pull a boosted version of the Riku EX metal because it has replaced it. If you go for it, if you only pull off that deal, you will never be able to get a boosted version. Again, the percentage of that happening is very, very low, but still it's worth pointing out. Less jewels to metal ratio, we'll talk about that in a second. And of course you have a chance to get the EX metal early if you're pulling from the trait metal deal. But as you can see, in this one in particular, it's up that way, in this one in particular, double the drop rate is pretty impressive. It's over a 1% chance, I believe, which for an EX medal is quite unheard of. It's still obviously very, very low, don't be fooled. But if you're doing a ton of pulls, like let's say you're doing up to 15 pulls to guarantee yourself a copy of this illustrated Riku EX, at a 1% chance every single pull, that's not too bad. It's not too bad. For an EX medal, you're going to do 15 pulls at a decent pull rate. There's a decent chance you're going to get it early. Now, definitely not guaranteed, and again, that's why we'll always assume that you won't get it until you are guaranteed to get it, but it is worth pointing out nonetheless. I'm just going to talk about that metal ratio in a second here. So, let's not forget here that there's no discount. There is no falling price deal in the trait metal deal. Once you've done that initial pull, right, once you've mercy pulled that the first time, the price doesn't reset. The price is always going to be 1900 jewels from this point onwards for every subsequent pull. So even if you had to do all 15 pulls again to get yourself another copy of Illustrator Riku EX, it's going to cost you 28,500 jewels. Now that is nearly double going for the trait metal deal, but you do get 3 times the amount of medals for that price. If you're going to do full 15 pulls at a 10 pull, well, with 10 medals per pull, obviously it's going to work out at 150 medals with at least 15 premiums, and given that the premium rate lately is honestly quite good, let's not lie here. Actually, we can pull it up, can't we? That's going to be at least 15 premiums. Quite honestly, probably going to be a lot more than that. Let's pull up the draw odds right here, and you guys probably can't see that. Let's see if we can make this bigger real quick. Do some on-the-fly editing. There we go. 20% chance of getting a 6-star medal. That's incredible. That is really, really good. For a deal like this, that is insanely good. I don't believe that rate is carried on to the other deal. No, it's not. It isn't at all. So you have a much smaller chance, literally half the chance of getting additional premiums going for the trait metal deal that you do for going for the original EX falling price deal. So that's definitely worth taking into account if, like me, you're basically looking for any premiums that you can. Any single premium that you get from this point onwards is going to be an additional trait roll that you're going to get. And given that there's a limited pool of medals that you can actually pull from, again, we're going to be editing this real quick. Okay, so the 6-star medals that we can get, no, that's the non-guaranteed ones. Down the bottom here. Okay, again, so there's a very limited selection. Actually, let's just make this bigger. Let's just make this real big. Alright, that's good enough. Okay, you can see that we have a limited set of medals here. So, obviously, Illustrator Riku EX at the top, but it's pretty much 6-star medals and above from this point onwards, so you're going to be able to get some decent traits off your 6-star medals pretty quickly, which is pretty fantastic. And of course, that brand new World Ends With You medal. I don't rate that medal particularly highly, but nonetheless, it's still there, so it's still worth pointing out. Alright, let's shrink you back down again. Burp. Okay, so what do I think of trait medals in general? Again, I think it's a really positive step forward for the game. I do quite like it, in theory, quite a lot. I do think it could use some improvements, though, and potentially, though, because, you know, this is only the very first one of these that we've seen, could potentially get something like this. What, and this could be extremely greedy on my point of view, so on my behalf, what if we could get a medal like this, which is a Fantasia Mickey B trait medal, aka a wild card that will give any single trait to any medal whatsoever? That'd be pretty cool. The idea that you could hang on to it, and when you got a really, let's say you did like a lucky EX pull one day, and you had one of these stored in the bank, that'd be pretty nice. That'd be pretty nice indeed. What if we got super greedy? What if we got like ridiculously greedy and said, okay, what if you have one of these wildcard medals with a guaranteed trait on it? You have an extra attack wildcard trait medal, you have an extra, or you have a ground defense, you have an aerial defense, whatever. That could be extremely powerful. That could be extremely powerful, but that would probably make me want to pull, because if I saw an EX medal out in the shop that was 15, 20 pull Mercy, right? But I knew that when I got that, I could immediately give it negative 60 ground and guilt it at the same time, I would be way more tempted to go for it. As it stands right now, just because of the randomness of the trade system, you could go through all of that purchasing, right? You go through all of this purchasing, and then go ahead, pick yourself up a trait medal, and as always with these goddamn traits, someone's going to end up with poison resist, paralysis resist, while the other person's going to end up with extra attack, with negative 60 ground, negative 60 aerial, and it's just this ridiculous inequality of the because there's no guarantees. If you've noticed anything about my playstyle, I will only go ahead and pull stuff if there's a pretty good guarantee, or if the odds are certainly in my favor of knowing what I'm going to get. Traits are just so against that it's ridiculous. Like, that's why I went so crazy on those on the previous deals where you get tons and tons of medals, like the 2 premiums in that debut deal. I was going crazy on that because I was forcing luck into my favor. You know, you were getting Final Form Sora and the brand new Riku and copycat medals and stuff, and every single time you get one of those, you get to roll for traits, and if you're getting effectively 2 new traits on 2 good medals every single time, eventually, just by the rolling over and over and over and over again, you're going to get decent traits. That's different to this though, because it takes so much to just roll once that you can't brute force it with luck. It's not going to come out your way most of the time. So again, that's why I'm a big proponent of, I can be patient, I can definitely be patient, I can wait quite a long time, but if this ever comes out one day, I'll be pretty happy with that. So anyway, those are just some initial thoughts on what I'm thinking about trait medals. I definitely like to see them keep going one day. I'm excited to see how they've been implemented so far. I think their initial implementation has honestly been pretty good. 15,000 joules for a trait on an EX medal, that's really not that bad. If the next set of traits comes along and it's, I don't know, a falling price version of the same deal, that could be extremely tempting. Now we're talking less than 10,000 joules to re-roll, and you can keep doing that over and over again. That's pretty tempting. That's pretty tempting. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Are you going to go ahead and... does this make it more tempting for you? Does this make it more tempting to try and go for an EX medal, knowing that you can immediately get a trait on it, despite the fact that the odds are still low? It's a less costly way of getting traits on it straight away. Or does the cons that I talked about, the negative side of having a banner like this, dissuade you from wanting to pull? Definitely let me know what you think, guys. I'm just going to, if this game ever wants to load, I'm going to go ahead and collect my jewels before I forget. In any case, let's go ahead and collect all these for the month. Get those additional bonuses as well. Cool. Beans. 50,000. Beautiful. Alright, that's really awesome. I might... I really do want to pull for this. No, next time. Anyway, guys, I'll catch you later. All the best. Bye.